Hello, everybody. I am Professional Yapster, and yes, I stole that from Banthony. So today we are going to be talking about obsession. Anyway, welcome to my channel. I'm JD, and I love to yap. I love to talk about pop culture, politics, a bunch of other things. And originally, this channel was going to be more about politics and everything, but I ended up deleting one of the videos that I made, and I want to completely start fresh. So usually what I do, I'm an art channel on a different channel, but I've always really wanted to talk about a bunch of stuff, and so I watched Obsession last night, and well, maybe more earlier this morning, like 1 a.m., and I really became obsessed with just everything about it. And immediately while I was watching it, I was unable to not do any movie analysis, and I came up with this theory. Now, I want to clarify that I don't think my theory is anything like original or that hasn't been said. I haven't done much research into this. I watched a few videos critiquing the Alex Myers video and apology about it, which I completely agree with the critiques and everything. It was just terrible and terrible taste, and I think there's a certain relevance that is happening as Graham Plattner stepping down from the election, and then the character of Bear. These two things occurring and being like the nice guy versus the chud, and how people really, really wanted to relate and love these men who are absolutely terrible and have no respect for women and women's autonomy in their bodies and are just misogynistic, but have this sort of appeal in different ways, right? And so I thought it was interesting how these two things were occurring almost simultaneously. I know Obsession has been out for a little while, and the Graham Plattner thing has been going on for a little while and has finally reached a kind of conclusion just this past week. Let's get into the theory. So basically, what I want to say, this is what you all miss about Obsession. So basically, what I want to say is Curse Nikki slash Freaky Nikki. I can't say it like that. Freaky Nikki is a manifestation of Bear's wants and desires. Let's go through my evidence list to support my thesis slash claim. When Nikki first gets possessed, she says, "My cat just died," and stutters over her words and has to correct herself. So, as we know, Bear's cat Sandy is the one who just died, and Bear is the one who isn't very eloquent with his words. He stutters a lot and he's a very nervous person. And what he really wanted and desired out of the first time around of this conversation is when Nikki said, you can come to me when Sandy's death finally hits you. He wanted to tell her, well, my cat just died, so you can comfort me, aka I can go into your home. Now, Bear would not really be that comfortable in Nikki's home, so Nikki quickly switches to say, "Let's go to your house instead." I'm not going to talk about the petulant childlikeness of her as much, because I do think it's a way for Bear to maybe make things more lighthearted and sort of fake in his mind. Like, it really plays into the fantasy in his mind if Nikki is acting more like childlike and more in this petulant way. I think he has this immaturity within himself that comes out in moments when he's angry, but in these awkward moments, he kind of wants to pull a little "I'm so quirky" type vibe, if that makes sense. Now, this leads them to sharing the bed, or wanting to share the bed. And well, Nikki claiming that she wants him to share the bed and their first kiss. Now, he kind of had an idea of how he wanted the night to go in his mind, and he would have liked it to end with this sweet rom-com moment together where they shared their first kiss and then they shared the bed together. But because Nikki is pushed up to the surface and freaks out, he has to take a step back from that. You can even see the moment where she takes off her shirt and he's turned around and he thinks something's wrong with her, though he's not very sure. This kind of makes me think of, not to this reference, if you didn't watch The Vampire Diaries, I'll explain a little bit, but Elena is taken over by her doppelgangers, Catherine. Her body is taken over by Catherine. Catherine is in love with Stefan. At the moment in time, Stefan and Elena had been together, but they're broken up. And Catherine wants to get back with Stefan, and she believes she can only do that as Elena. So what she does is they're sharing a hotel. Like, she makes it so that they get stranded together, and she takes off her shirt, and Stefan's turned around, and essentially the same setup, like this kind of fantasy of the girl you love seducing you and everything. I do think they end up kissing in the motel. I don't know, but Stefan is under the belief that this is Elena, but Elena, there's something wrong with Elena, so he's not really into it, even though he's still in love with her. But Bear is completely into this because, again, this is not like where Catherine takes over Elena's body and Catherine is acting out her wants and desires. This is Bear taking over Nikki's body and Bear acting out his wants and desires, which is what Nikki is a manifestation of now. So when we move on to the next part, when they go to work the next day at the music shop, and it's basically like Nikki's just constantly staring at Bear and Ian. I think this is Bear not wanting anything to be suspicious, right? He's like, nobody catch on, nobody catch on. But she's also frozen because he's not thinking about Nikki in this moment, like what she would be outside of him, really. He's just thinking about her in the confines of what happened last night and everything. So she is continuing to behave quite absurdly and just constantly staring. And we as the audience know that she's staring at Bear, but they believe that she's staring at Bear and Ian, which kind of plays into this whole thing that gets revealed later on, that maybe Ian's relationship with Nikki had informed how Bear and Ian talked about Nikki. So, yeah. The next thing that happened, oh wait, no, I also wanted to say that Bear being extremely nervous would make sense to like him being frozen, like Nikki freezing up as a manifestation of how he's feeling and everything, because as we saw in the beginning, he stutters, he doesn't quite find the courage to say the words, so Nikki just standing there and smiling awkwardly really makes sense. The next thing that happens is the confession. After talking on the phone with Ian, he says Ian says maybe Nikki was on MDMA. Now, Bear knows that this could possibly be a manifestation of his wish. Remember, he's researching it online and all this stuff, but he's ignoring it. He doesn't want that to be the truth. So this is the truth he comes up with. So Nikki immediately comes to his house and says, I was on MDMA, because Bear wants this to be the truth. She was drunk, and now we get a redo of the night that he wanted from the first moment before he made the wish. She says, Bear, do you like me? And we go into this montage of them being happy, because this is how he gets exactly what he wants. Now the dream, the fantasy, the wish is fulfilled, And I came up with this thing in my mind that the cat is kind of a proxy for Nikki. Remember, like, Nikki is his dream girl, something he loves, and kind of doesn't really have too much autonomy like a pet. She can only exist within the confines of the house, and Bear has to take care of her. The cat dies because the cat gets into the pills. How does the cat get into the pills? Bear leaves them in an area and open enough that the cat is able to get in and overdose on the pills. This is also, again, foreshadowing for what happens at the end as Bear takes the pills and tries to overdose, again showing that the cat is Nikki and Nikki is Bear. Okay? So again, this is something that he loved but didn't really pay attention to. And then on the first date, things become to crash. The news of Nikki lying and him knowing for sure it's the wish, it turns into, I thought we were having a nice date. This is me, so like, this is a proof to me that Bear is immature and petulant when he's angry, and he's thinking this on the inside. He's so upset that their nice date, their fantasy, their bubble has been burst, and he in frustration wants to scream and cry out and kind of do this thing. Now, there have been other moments where Nikki hurts herself and stuff, but that is when, like, Nikki is fighting with who she's being possessed by. These moments, I believe, are Bear. Bear would like to do this. Bear would like to be angry and act out, but he can't, partially because he's too socially awkward, partially because he's a coward, partially because this would be an overreaction, and some part of him knows that, but again, Nikki acts out his subconscious. Then the scene after, he acts like everything's alright. He immediately violates her. You see that she is like completely dead. This is because, one, he's not really thinking about what she would want or who she would be like. Two, I think Nikki is in part here because I think when Bear turns off what he wants a little bit more, similar to when he's sleeping, Nikki comes out. So that was a very, very haunting and depressing scene, and I was ready for Bear to go at this point. So Nikki goes to stand in the corner as Bear sleeps. This is partially because in Bear's mind, Bear doesn't want Nikki to get up and leave. He knows that he's trapping her here. This isn't really Nikki. So he wants to keep a watchful eye on her, but Nikki is the one keeping a watchful eye on Bear because Nikki is Bear. I also think that when Bear sleeps, Nikki comes out, so there's a part of Nikki that was trying to get away after being assaulted, and she goes to stand in the corner. Then when he wakes up, Nikki's like acting weird and everything. Because, like, Bear would like for things to continue to be normal, but it's not normal. Like, this is you fully aware you're taking advantage of your friend, and you don't care about it, and you want to keep on going. There's this thing where he wants it to kind of be perfect again. You know, he wants to focus back on the connection that got them there, the sanity of it all. And that's why what happens the next morning is very, 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 yeah, gross, but it makes sense. Like, think about it. He doesn't want this wish to expire. It starts to come about from the root of Sandy dying. He's going, like, all this stuff ends up being tangled in this one moment where he can really garner sympathy from Nikki, from the real Nikki, right? And so Nikki tapes up the door because Bear doesn't want Nikki to have any possible way of leaving. The cat, okay, so bear with me here, pun not intended. Similar, later on, they talk about Hansel and Gretel. If you know anything about the story with Hansel and Gretel and the witch, two kids go into the woods and get eaten by a witch. Cannibalism. Cannibalism as a metaphor for love is a thing that's been talked about a lot. I have a disdain for cannibalism. But this really works here, right? So Bear eats the cat. Nikki cooks the cat. Bear wishes to consume Nikki and keep her there forever and keep her with him forever. And so also I'm thinking of Where the Wild Things Are in the song by Alt J, Breeze Blocks, Please Don't Go, I'll Eat You Whole, I Love You So, I Love You So, Where the Wild Things Are / Breeze Blocks, a line there. And so he does throw up at this because it's a very disgusting thing to one, eat your cat, but it's also a thing that I think he would be partially disgusted at himself by, but again, he's not really willing to acknowledge it. So that's why the idea even comes to fruition in the first place. And then, like, once you can't ignore it, you know, you have to throw it up. You have to expel it. And then I also think it's showing that Bear has a guilty subconscious because he didn't pay attention that he put the cat at the risk of dying, and he didn't pay attention to the meal he's eating, you know? Right, okay. Afterwards, Bear does not want to go to this party alone. He's in the car with Ian. Ian's talking about, like, something's off, and he doesn't want suspicion to be aroused, but at the same time, he doesn't want to go to the party alone because he's a socially awkward person and he's enjoying these moments with Nikki so much. So Nikki ends up being able to go to the party. He also he loves a heartfelt confession, right? Remember at the beginning of the movie, he's planning out his heartfelt confession and he ends up not being able to go through with it. So what happens is Nikki is going through with this heartfelt confession, and she says the whole thing about Hansel and Gretel and keeping her little brother, which this is something that we hear from Sarah earlier in the party, keeping the little brother with her and having this incestuous relationship. Obviously, this is very in the more literal sense because Nikki and Bear aren't siblings. Hansel and Gretel are in the story, and people were saying like, this is what about Nikki saying the thing earlier. I don't know if people took this to say Nikki is in there and she was sending the message, but to me, this was Bear's awareness that Nikki doesn't really like him, right? But now he's gonna twist the little brother thing to be sort of romantic too, so that he can still live in this fantasy. And so that's how we get this weird confession. Then we have the whole kiss Sarah thingy. Oh Lord. Now at this moment, Bear is aware that Nikki likes him. He doesn't like her back, but after, like in the later in the at the end of the movie, he realized is like this is maybe more what he wanted. So something happens with that will go into my theory. But in this current moment, he's not wanting Sarah like that. So Nikki moves Sarah, and they share the kiss. Nikki comes to the surface again, tries to tell everybody, like it's not me, and he is worried about people finding out. So then when Nikki is supposed to go to the emergency room, she doesn't actually want to go because Bear doesn't really want to alert anybody to the fact that he's holding this woman hostage, right? And then we have the moment where Bear is supposed to talk to Nikki. Bear's supposed to talk to Sarah, but he doesn't want to wake up Nikki. So a part of him doesn't really want to talk to Sarah because he doesn't want to talk about how weird she was behaving, but also this is where the confession happens. Now, it's not the same confession, but it's definitely the more romantic movie moment where the main protagonist is going to realize that the dream crush isn't who he wanted, but it's the best friend that he laid to the side, right? Unfortunately, I think he thinks to himself, like, I wish Nikki and Sarah were merged. And so Nikki comes and kills Sarah. And then this is why, in my opinion, Nikki is able to kill her and mold them together at home. And Nikki is able to do this stuff without Bear being there. Because remember, last time when Bear left her, Nikki was not able to act on her own. But in this moment, Nikki is able to rip off Sarah's skull, copy all of her tattoos, set up her body, do all this stuff. And I think that is because he is he wanted this. So he wants these two girls to be together to have his sort of dream girl. He goes to Ian. He goes to talk to Ian. No. He goes to the store first. And this is where my theory really felt the most true. Because when he goes to the store to talk to the attendant, he yells, he does a thing, and then he says he's sorry. And this was very eerily similar to all the ways Nikki would have her outbursts. She yells, and then she says sorry. And I was like, oh my gosh, my theory feels so real. So he goes to Ian. He knows about the hooking up, but it's just like a little anger about it right now, right? But the moment Ian asks for $1 billion, oh, now he has to die. So when he comes over and interrupts Nikki and what's his name? Nikki and Bear's moment, and Ian walks in the house, Nikki kills him promptly because Bear's mad. Bear's mad he didn't help out, and Bear's mad that he hooked up with Nikki and kept it a secret. And not only that he kept it a secret, but that it wasn't him. So, Ian's gotta go. Now, Bear's finally gonna go kill himself because he's like, okay, 2 people are dead. Like, I can no longer live under these conditions. Totally fine with it before because he was gonna want to alter the wish and everything. But now, can't do it. So, what happens is he leaves out the second One Wish Willow. When he takes the pills, he goes to make himself vomit. The same time he makes himself vomit, Nikki finally makes the wish. And so he's like essentially trying to take back the attempt without coughing up the pills. Oh my gosh, he's stupid. So this again is Bear's manifestation. Last his one last ditch attempt at saving his life and getting the life that he wanted. And yeah, of course it doesn't work and Nikki comes to the surface. But yeah, was him trying to undo his attempt, and he couldn't undo it because in order to actually undo it, he would have needed to throw the pills, and he just didn't. But that's my theory. What did you guys think about it? What did you guys think about the movie? What are your favorite parts? Is there anything I missed? I watched it last night and I said all of this from memory, so if I missed anything, so sorry about that. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I will be hopefully making another video soon about a bunch of things. I know I want to make one about Interview with the Vampire and the failures of certain shows lately. So yeah. Okay, bye. Thank you all for watching.